Hi, William Gilmore here for the ScreenwritersJourney.com, and it is day 13 of the journey. And tonight we are going to save the cat. Say, what? Save the cat? I thought we were here to write screenplays. Well, we are, by saving the cat. Now, Save the Cat is a unique methodology that was developed by the late Blake Snyder, in which he outlines a screenplay utilizing specific plot points on prescribed pages. There are a lot of other methods out there, not just Save the Cat. We've got Chris Soth's mini movie method, or Vicky King's How to Write a Screenplay in 21 Days, and of course, there's the granddaddy of them all, Robert McKee's Story Program. These are all based on Sid Field's book Screenplay, where he outlines the basic plot structure, the three-act structure of virtually every Hollywood movie ever made. This is a structure that Hollywood expects, so you need to know it and be able to deliver it. They've got 100 years of marketing and movie experience behind them to know that this structure works. And it actually goes back much further than Hollywood. The three-act structure is first mentioned by Aristotle in his treatise called Poetics. So if you're trying to buck the system and do something completely different, you got a couple thousand years of history that you've got to go up against. So don't hamstring yourself if you're trying to sell Hollywood. Play the game, give them what they want, and when you've got a proven successful track record, then you can do whatever you want. But until then, you pretty much got to follow the rules. Now, why Save the Cat? Why not one of these other methods that I mentioned? I don't know. Save the Cat just happened to be the one that was on my mind when I decided to try something different. I was working on a new screenplay called Do Unto Others last spring, and since I was starting something new, I thought, well, let's try something different, and let's try one of these methods, a different strategy to see what it does. So I would start by writing my scenes and write them the way I would, and then I would go back and sort of conform them to meet the parameters of Save the Cat. And then I would take those pages into my writers group, which is Tuesdays at 9, Los Angeles. It is an offshoot of the Naked Angels Theater Group, and it's a group of playwrights and screenwriters who bring in 10 pages of their work and get to hear them read aloud by professional actors, and you get to judge the audience reaction and see if things are working or not. And by using this system, I found that my writing was a lot more concise. There was a lot more forward progression in the action. Just things seemed to be more on point. And I was a little leery at first because I was having to cut things out that I had written that I was like, wow, this is a really nice moment. This is some great dialogue. Do I really want to lose this? Well, the only way I can make it fit the Save the Cat paradigm is to lose this stuff. And what I found is I didn't really need that. It was extraneous material. The story functioned just fine without it, and I actually felt a little better. So I thought, if it's working for this new screenplay, what would happen if I applied it to an existing screenplay that I'd already written? And I happened to have just the one sitting on the shelf. It was called Come Ups, and it was a completed screenplay. I had done some readings with it. One was with some college students, and another was with actors in New York. And both times I got a really great reaction, good comments. People seemed to enjoy it. But there's still this nagging sense that something wasn't quite right. I wasn't quite sure what it was. It just didn't feel like it was moving the way it should. There was some lagging. And I would go through it and look at it and go, was there anything I can cut? Is there anything I can take out? And, there's these great moments and there's this great dialogue. No, this is a great bit here. And I just didn't want to cut the babies. But when I started to apply the Save the Cat method, I had no choice. Because I found I had a lot of the right elements that Mr. Snyder called for. They were just in the wrong place. A lot of times what happens is they would come a page or two late. And of course, if the first section, everything is happening late, then the next section is going to happen late, and I added too much in that section, so that pushed the third section down a little further. So by the time I got to, say, the first act break, going into Act 2, that was 6 or 7 pages too late, even according to Sid Field's theory of the three-act structure. So basically what I had was a lot of bloat. So in order to make that screenplay fit the paradigm of Save the Cat, I had to do some cutting. And there was a little restructuring. And things started to line up, and things started to play better, and that forward progression that I felt I was lacking was suddenly there. And again, all these little extra bits that I had added that I thought were great character moments and things really didn't add that much. Sad to say. Because you spend a lot of time creating those moments, and you find out that you really don't need them. And so things did start to line up. There were some sections that just still didn't work, and so that required either scrapping the scene and writing an entire new one, or rewriting that scene somehow to make it work. And what I'm feeling so far is that the screenplay seems to be working pretty well. I'm very happy with the changes that I've made in it. I'm going to be taking it into the Tuesdays at 9 Writers Workshop, not this week, but the following week, for the first 10 pages. So we'll start to put that new paradigm to a test and see if the changes are actually working. In the meantime, I'd like to walk you through the Save the Cat method so you can get an idea of what it is and how it works. So tonight we're going to talk about the Act 1 section. And we're just going to go through the points of Act 1 because it's way too long to go into everything. You'll be here all night watching this video. And then over the next couple of nights, I will be putting up pages, first 10 pages, second 10 pages, third 10 pages, of the original screenplay and the new version, and we'll walk through that and see what the changes are and why I made them and how they fit the Save the Cat paradigm. So over the next couple of nights, we'll be going through Act 1, and then we'll start Act 2, and then ultimately we'll do Act 3, and along the way we'll be getting feedback from the workshop at Tuesdays at 9. So next couple of weeks we'll be providing a lot of information for you. Before we begin, what is Save the Cat, and why did Blake Snyder choose that as a title for his method? And it's interesting because Save the Cat is actually not one of the plot points in the method. It is something completely different. And actually what that is the moment when the hero, or our protagonist, does something that defines who he is as a person. For example, a firefighter risks his life to run back into a blazing inferno to save a little girl's cat. He is literally saving the cat. He is putting his life at risk, and it defines him as a character. We know something about him that he's willing to go above and beyond the duty, or whatever it is. It's that moment that we save the cat. An example of this in an actual movie would be in Burt Reynolds' movie Hooper, where he plays a stuntman in Hollywood. One of the early scenes, Hooper is on top of a building and he has to leap off of it into an air mattress for a scene in the movie that they're filming. But he has to leap off with a small dog. And he's worried about the dog, so when he leaps, as he's falling to the air mattress, he twists and turns in the air so that he takes the brunt of the fall and the dog is protected. He has literally saved the dog. He injures himself in the fall, and as he's climbing out of the airbag, one of his buddies says, "Hey, I saw what you did. You took the brunt, over a dog." And he was like, "I had the choice. I made the choice to go up there and make the leap. The dog didn't." And so it gives an idea, it gives an insight into Burt Reynolds' character and what type of man he is. Another example that Blake Snyder uses is Al Pacino in Sea of Love. In one of the early scenes there, Pacino is a police officer in New York, has set up a sting operation where he's going to get parole violators to come in, and under the guise that they have won a contest and are going to get to meet the New York Yankees. So they show up and they all get arrested. It shows what a cool, clever guy that Al Pacino is. He's a cop that's on top of things and he's in control. But then a man shows up with his son because he wants his son to meet his heroes, the New York Yankees. Well, this bothers Pacino because he doesn't want the boy to see his father get arrested. So he sneaks around and very discreetly shows his police badge to the man so the guy knows what's going on. Well, he doesn't want his son to see him get arrested, so he hightails it out of there. But as he's leaving, Pacino yells after him, "Catch you later." So we get the idea that Pacino has a soft spot in his heart that he's not, a hardened cop, but he's not so soft that he's not going to go after the guy when the son's not around. So it's a moment that defines the character, and it really exemplifies the theory of save the cat. So let's dive into what the plot points of the Save the Cat method are. Down below in the text version of the blog, you will find a download of the 15 plot points so you can follow along if you would like to. Again, we're only going to go through the first act tonight. So it's only the first 6 points. So, the Save the Cat method involves 15 different plot points, and they are spread out across the script with specific page numbers that they should occur on. Now, this beat sheet that you can download is based on a screenplay of having 110 pages. Now, if you have a screenplay that is slightly longer or slightly less than 110 pages, your plot points may vary slightly from these prescribed numbers. The only plot points that can't change are those in the first act. You can consider those carved in stone. And as we go through the first act, you'll see why. If your screenplay is over 120 pages, it's too long. And you're going to have a hard time getting anybody to look at it if you do not have a proven and successful track record having Hollywood movies made. They're not going to trust you that your story is developed enough. You've probably got too much story. If your script is under 90 pages, they're not going to look at it at all because it is an underdeveloped story. So you should be looking for 100 to 110 pages as your page length on your script. And as I said, this beat sheet follows a 110-page script. So let's dive right into the 15 beats and see what they are. Now, our first beat occurs on the very first page. In fact, it is the very first thing the audience sees, and that is the opening shot. Now, the opening shot will define the tone, the style, and the mood of your film. It's also a chance to possibly introduce the main character and the world in which he lives in, and gives us a snapshot of what that world is like before the main action of the movie begins. Now, from that opening image, our next plot beat will be theme. And this happens on page 5. Someone is going to make a statement that expresses the moral question or lesson that is to be imparted by the movie. Now, Blake Snyder tells us it's something along the lines of, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or pride goeth before a fall. Although he does caution that it probably shouldn't be quite that obvious. Now, that statement is going to be made by one of the characters and probably not your hero. If the hero makes the statement and imparts the lesson that needs to be learned, he already knows it. So there's really no journey for him to go on. So it's probably going to come from another character. Now, that's not necessarily so. He could be a hypocrite. It could be a case of do as I say and not as I do. And he has to learn that lesson. So your main character could say it, but there has to be a good reason why he says it. So something to keep in mind. So that theme comes on around page 5. And that brings us to our next plot point, which is the setup. Now, the setup happens between pages 1 and 10, so it's going to incorporate the opening shot and the theme. Now, the setup is where you will introduce your various characters and set up the world in which they live in and give us a little exposition, maybe about the relationships between the characters and what's going on, where they are at this moment in their lives. And we do all that setup so that we can upend it all and destroy it. And that's going to happen around page 12 with our catalyst, or inciting incident. This is the event that will set the action of the movie in motion. It's where the hero receives the notice that he's terminally ill, or his girlfriend breaks up with him. He finds out he's been fired from his job. It's basically some event that is going to alter our hero's world. Then the hero gets to question that event and what to do about it. And this is called the debate beat. And it covers pages 12 to 25, where basically the character is going to debate what has just happened to him and what he needs to do next. And that's going to happen over a period of 10 pages or so. And that will lead us directly into our act break at the end of Act 1 leading into Act 2. And that act break has to happen on page 25. It has to. That is something that Sid Field talks about in his book. It is something that Blake Snyder insists upon in his book. And the reason for that is this 3-act structure has been so ingrained into the Hollywood mentality that there's 2 things that they're going to do when you submit a script to them. First thing they're going to do is flip to the last page. How long is it? Is it over 120 pages? Goodbye. Got another script to read. Is it under 90 pages? Goodbye. I got another script to read. It's that brutal. So page count is important. And then the second thing they're going to do, if you pass that test, is turn to page 25. Do you have your act break happening on page 25? If you don't, there's a good chance they're going to pass on the script and move on to the next one. So it can't happen on 24, it can't happen on 26. It needs to happen on 25 because that's where they're going to look for it. Now, if you have a proven track record, you can alter the page count slightly because they know you and they trust you. But if you're an unknown trying to break in, you got to follow the rules at this point. So page 25 is what you were looking for. Now your first act will wrap up in the next couple of pages, usually by 28, but you definitely have to have it wrapped up by 30 because on 30 you're going to be moving into Act 2 and your B story. But the important thing to remember is to hit that plot point on page 25. It's been drilled into my head and now I'm drilling it into yours. I cannot emphasize that enough. And because we have to hit that plot point on page 25, that pretty much means everything that comes before it has to happen where they are prescribed to happen. There's not a lot of wiggle room. You don't have a lot of play. You've got to set up that opening shot. You've got to get your theme in. You've got to get your exposition. You've got to introduce the characters. You've got to have that the inciting incident, and you've got to have the debate about it. And that's all got to happen in that 25 pages. So you really don't have much room here to wiggle around. You've got to hit those. Once you get past page 25, depending on the length of your screenplay, you've got a little more wiggle room on how you can hit those plot points. But like I said, first 25 pages, those plot points, consider them carved in stone. So that will do it for this evening. I've taken you through the first act. Over the next 3 nights, I will be posting the first 10 pages, second 10 pages, and the third 10 pages, both the original version and the new version, so that we can walk through those and see what changes were made, why I made them, and you can see how that might apply to your own writing. In fact, what you should do tonight is go through the first 6 beats of the beat sheet and see how your screenplay compares. Do you hit those moments? Do you have a great opening shot? One that's going to be memorable to audiences? Do you have a theme? A lot of people don't even have a theme set up in their stories. Something that you have to have. And if you have it, is it on page 5? Do you have your exposition in the setup? Have you introduced all your main characters? Do we know what the relationship between the characters are? Those are all things that have to happen in the first 10 pages. Do you have an inciting incident, the catalyst that is going to set the action of your movie in motion? Is there time for the character to debate what to do about this inciting incident before he makes his decision at the act break? And does your act break fall on page 25, or did you fudge it a little bit and come in on page 28? Those are things to look at and consider. So have a look at that, and then tomorrow night we will start looking at come-ups and see how I have made adjustments in the first 10 pages to get the original script to conform to the Save the Cat method. So until tomorrow night, I am William Gilmore saying good night and keep writing.